Sadr City, Baghdad, Iraq, 2005-0115. Written by Christopher J. Robinson. In between dark shadows and sparse rays of moonlight, three idling pandas mirroring giant armored turtles sat parked on the side of an unpaved road somewhere deep in Sadr City. Inside the first monster vehicle, Will crouched ready to deploy. At the moment, he adjusted his AMPVS-15 dual night vision goggles, then switched the safety on his tricked-out M4 fighter. Upon cue, he climbed out with 5 other operators who were all wearing the same green body armor, camo uniforms, and customized AR platforms. He loved these situations and felt comfortable even in the cramped space he was just sitting in. But now, he was free to do his job and prosecute the high-value target Al-Rawi. Wanted by JSOC, top bomb maker Arman Mustafa Al-Rawi and 3 of his goons should still be sleeping in their home a block away. Will signaled the next vehicle with a laser on his gun, and the next team climbed down, detailed as the backup team in case things got hairy. The third and final vehicle would be the first to roll around and pick up the target once the shooting stopped and Al-Rawi was captured. Will's assault element filed down the quiet street, careful not to disturb any curious bystanders who might stare out their windows at them. The unnerving silence bothered him, though. He almost preferred the loudness of battle, similar to his days with the Rangers, when silence, speed, and action of violence hardly mattered. Well, not so much dissimilar from his time now with the unit. The biggest difference now was there were fewer of this type, and stealth was even more key. With the regiment, everything was slightly louder due to the size of the force, which operated on a platoon or company size level. Now, here he was with a smaller group of guys, specifically selected from the Rangers, Special Forces, and other units, tasked only to complete the most sensitive assignments the U.S. government didn't want to acknowledge or read about. In fact, he never considered these missions to be assassinations at all, but capture missions gone wrong if the target and his associates attempted to draw their weapons on him or his teammates. The whole point was to capture at most costs, and that was what his unit prided itself in doing every night. He figured, just send in the big army instead, if the only point was to light everything up. Trigger discipline separated Delta from other military units except Development Group, who are currently operating over in Afghanistan. Ranked at only Sergeant First Class, Will didn't have much clout when it came to JSOC dictating his team's assignments, so he kept his mouth shut. And tonight was no different. He'd rather park or fly in on the objective, but headquarters in all its wisdom decided his team would park a whole block away. Bullshit! Sadr City was no place to test theories. Guys can die that way, and for no reason, he mumbled to himself, as his team stopped 2 shack houses away from the target compound. The city remained how they left it the previous night, very shoddy and poor. No concrete for the streets, and a lingering gut-wrenching smell of death filled his nostrils. Will never worried about getting lost in this shanty part of town. After all, he had his teammates with him. Plus, he knew his exact location by the drone pilot updating the team leader stalking behind him. Finally, if he ever got separated from the main element, he could navigate his way to or away from the target building by using the Garmin Fortrex GPS attached to his wrist or the Sun 2 compass strapped to his shoulder. The target was indeed north. The houses nearby weren't much to look at either, and were in close proximity to each other. Instead, they looked more like mortar huts with flat tin roofs, surrounded by mud walls to keep the neighbors out. Sewage pooled in the streets, deadening any hope of saving this part of the city once the war ended. It needed to be leveled and rebuilt. Will just shook his head. The team leader signaled the go-ahead as they stalked up to the gate of the walled-off compound. Will wondered why the former Baptist leader decided to hide out here. The 2-story clay building reminded him of the big compound homes in downtown Baghdad, except these blend in, but the target building did not. For now, the windows of the objective remained black and lifeless, but soon he pictured the cries and screams of housewives and children wailing at the top of their lungs, as their men were either dead were being hauled off by an American Special Ops team seeking them. The point man assessed the gate's needs and called up the team breacher, who made his own signal, verifying a heavy chain lock securing 2 slide doors together. Everyone, including Will, readied their weapons for entry. Then the breacher withdrew a set of bolt cutters from his kit and snapped the lock with a heavy pop. The only 3 things going through Will's head as he dashed through the open gate behind the other operators was a quick surprise, speed, and action of violence the Delta way. Nothing else mattered. Get in and own the next room like he learned all those years ago. Then the breacher withdrew the sawed-off shotgun from his side holster and racked around and placed it at a 45 and 45-degree angle at the door's locking mechanism and pulled the trigger. Metal and wood splintered in a flash, and the operators filed in quickly, focusing through their night vision at 3 men sitting around a large candlelit table, smoking cigarettes and eating. Before any of them could reach for their AK-47s propped against the furthest wall, Will and his teammates spread out and placed invisible lasers attached to their rifles on them. Suddenly, one terrorist dashed for his weapon, but not before 2 operators and Will fired off several rounds, knocking the man off his feet and sending him slamming into the wall dead. The other men froze and raised their hands in silent surrender. Then, 3 of Will's teammates launched themselves across the room, screaming for them to get down on the ground, while Will stacked up by a short flight of steps. The terrorists begrudgingly obeyed, but Will's team leader couldn't get positive ID on their leader, Al-Rawi, amid the chaos. To help the situation further, a teammate ripped the face up of his captive to identify him, then shook his head and spoke. "Not our main guy." The troop leader then turned to the other operators, holding up their own captives' faces, and spit angrily. Al-Rawi wasn't among them. Realizing the error, Will pulled a teammate behind him, and they cleared their way upstairs to renew their search for the terrorists. Awaiting them were 4 women covered in standard black dresses and hoods, but amongst them cowered several small raggedy children, too afraid to move. They wailed silently, staring at something in the left corner. In the darkness, Will turned and saw a tall, skinny man dressed in white and wearing a skull cap, holding a pistol to the back of a small woman's head. Her hands were raised in terror as she shook uncontrollably. Immediately, Will's night vision training kicked in, and he placed his laser on a taller male head peeking out from behind her face. There, he saw her pleading eyes and fired. The terrorist's head snapped upward as the woman dropped to the ground unharmed. On the other hand, the body slammed against the wall and slumped forward in itself. Will took one more step inside the room and pulled the trigger again, effectively ensuring the threat was neutralized. Then, he checked the woman, quickly rolling her over and roughly feeling for any bombs. Meanwhile, the teammate who came in behind him tried to calm the weeping women and children in the background, but to no avail. "Room secured," Will called out as he and his teammate rounded the family up and herded them toward the stairwell. They wailed louder, but Will wasn't having it. Sure, they may be innocent, but he didn't want to take that chance. "Hey man, I'll meet you downstairs," Will said, leaning down and going through the man's pockets. His teammate nodded and began ushering them downstairs. Meanwhile, Will pulled out a flip cell phone from the blood-stained hands and opened and closed it. Then, he put it in a plastic bag, pulled from his go bag, and continued rummaging through the other side and found thick wads of cash soaked in blood and urine. He sucked in a deep breath, trying not to look at the face for fear of waking the dead man. He just couldn't, but then again he needed to verify the face. Suddenly, he heard a slight creak, then a voice speak up from behind him softly. "Hey man, you got him?" Will turned to see his team sergeant's Mitch helmet and night vision peeking just above the stairs. Will shrugged and quickly pulled a baseball card from his pocket and turned on his weapon's light to see the face. It matched. A small head, a spotty beard speckled with blood, but more importantly, a large black mole and single long hair protruding from it. "Yeah, I got him," Will said, finally taking his eyes off the ashen face. The master sergeant nodded and went back downstairs, leaving Will to drag the heavy weight to the edge of the stairwell. Before Will got on his headset to call in some help, a teammate, who he instantly recognized in the dark, met him at the bottom of the stairs. Of course, it was a tall Mike Orton who reached up and tugged on the body as Will stepped down the stairwell slowly. Awaiting them both were several teammates quietly guarding the family in the dark. The mission had ended as they rolled the body up. Then, the street began to rumble with the sound of large panthers coming in for pickup. While two operators guarded the family still inside, two former Baptist enforcers were roughly blindfolded, then taken outside and stuffed into the nearest panther for debriefing back in the green zone. Will walked out and climbed in and sat across from the hooded figure, now bound by heavy zip ties. To be honest, he didn't feel sorry for these guys because they were responsible for dozens of deaths of the most heinous sort. For now, the man sat quietly, but soon he would answer for his crimes as an enemy of his own people. I don't feel bad, Will smiled. He and the best the army had to offer just checked off 3 more loose remnants of Saddam's regime from 2 years ago, Al-Rawi being the worst. Will adjusted his helmet and rested the barrel of his gun on the vehicle's metal floor and closed his eyes for the short ride back to the green zone. Mission successful. First of all, I want to thank the men and women of our armed forces for their strength and courage. May God's angels spread their wings and keep our warriors safe. And finally, all characters depicted in this story are fictional and are to be taken as such. Please stay tuned for more.